Hello, everybody. Welcome to Quantum Witch Cafe, your safe place to talk about anything fringe, paranormal, UFO, anything spiritual, witchy, you name it. You're allowed to talk about it here, and nobody's going to judge you. Tonight, I have an amazing panel of witches, and they all do their own roles in the community. But first off, I want to say hello and thank you to everybody in the chat and anybody listening later on YouTube or watching later on YouTube. I appreciate you. Please give a like, thumbs up, subscribe, all that good stuff. And if you're listening on Anomalous Podcast Network, I appreciate you just as much. Leave whatever feedback you can. So it looks like we have somebody trying to join us, but I don't see her picture popping up yet. So I'm gonna see if it pops up when I add her. Let's see. And she's loading. Okay, so Myranda, I don't know if you can hear me, but I'm gonna add you when your picture becomes clear in like the backstage area, if that makes sense. So we're going to get started while Miranda's loading, and she can always shoot us a private message and we can troubleshoot. We have someone trying to connect. So, all right. So I'm going to start off asking everybody for their bio. A lot of people, if you're in the UFO community, you already know Lynn. She's done a lot of work on like so many different topics, and she's, she does a lot of amazing things. But Lynn, for people that don't know who you are, who are you? What do you do?
I'm Lynn. I'm part of the UFO community. Gosh, it seems like the UFO community is 24/7 for me right now. So I'm on Space Out Radio. I'm the weekend host there, do Saturday and Sunday nights. And I also have a new channel, Rebellious Ufology, that I do every single day, just about, sometimes twice a day. So it's crazy. So sorry if you're sick of seeing my face, but I'm here again. So, and then as far as ufology goes, I've been interested in that I've been working in the field, I should say, for like the past 10 years. I work a lot with experiencers. But as far as being a witch goes, excuse you, sorry, Akashi Chris Lulu was saying hi to you. She knows you're here. So I started looking into it, or actually kind of just stumbled upon it in my early 20s. I found a book that was amazing and really kind of changed the way that I saw the world. I've always been interested in religion and spirituality and all of that. And it was just a new way of looking at things, kind of integrating nature and the elements, which I've always loved. I've always been a kid that was like outdoors, I was climbing trees even as a high school, which is weird, right? It's kind of weird. It's okay. But like, I just loved it. And so this just really worked well with kind of my belief in things. And it's just grown from there. So it's evolved over the years. And now it's just a part of my life. It's almost not even, it's always a practice, right? But it's just kind of becomes a part of who you are, and you incorporate it into almost everything you do. So the way you see things. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. It's just you're just like, this works and I'm doing it. Like
yeah, pretty much.
I love it. So Miss Aida, how did you get involved in this in the community and in your practice? How did you become who you are today?
So I was born into a family that practiced Santeria, Palo, and Brujeria. So my mother's side of the family came from Cuba. And this was just part of growing up. And I later became a palera and a santera also. But I got discouraged with the animal sacrifices. I had just had it up to here. And I discovered Hoodoo, which doesn't involve animal sacrifices. And, I fell into that like a fish into water. And so as far as coming out of the closet, I didn't do that really blatantly until about maybe 12 years ago. But I made sure that it was after I retired because I was in the Air Force and I was a level 1 trauma nurse, and I was a nursing administrator. So those are the kind of things that keep your mouth shut, right? But then, once everything was over, then I could rediscover my roots and come out. And as far as my bio, I'm a Hoodoo practitioner, I'm a psychic reader, and I'm an author. And I've written several books now on the topic of Hoodoo.
That's amazing, and I'm listening. I'm just trying to help Myranda get connected here, because she seems to be having, like, when I put her up, it's, like, doing the circle thing, so it seems like it's a connection issue with the internet, so I don't know how to help her beyond that, so she left and came back too, so if anybody has any ideas on how to help her out, she's in the private chat right now.
Maybe
And
can
that's
she come in without her video? Wonder if that would work.
I don't know. Have her try that.
Okay, I'll message her.
Okay. And the hoodoo thing, the first spell book that I bought at Hot Topic when I was like in 7th grade was like it was a hoodoo book, and I remember like reading about all the things in it, and that was like my first one, and somebody's dad took it away from me at a slumber party. Like a Christian dude, like he's like, I'm not gonna invite you back after this. I didn't know that you were involved in satanic stuff. And I was like, so he took my first little hoodoo book away. But yeah,
but it's not satanic. It's a Judeo-Christian practice, basically.
Exactly, it's not. People they still don't understand. But he was, we were going to Catholic school, so. And I just wasn't Catholic. So Orlee, am I saying your name right?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't want to say it wrong. So, Orlee, how did you become this amazing like YouTube person and this powerful witch? How did this happen?
Well, not on purpose. I started having crazy paranormal experiences as a little kid. My family is Jewish. They're Catholic on my dad's side, but I was raised very religious Jewish, and I actually have religious leader people in my family. So me having a life of spirituality isn't that off the wall for what my family actually does. And I started doing witchy stuff as a kid. Like my friends, Jesse and Caitlin and I in high school would go into the woods when we were supposed to be doing gym class and make little fires and sit around it. And we never thought of it really like as witchcraft, but it very much was in hindsight. And then when I was 17, 18, I got into reading tarot and ceremonial magic. I joined a bunch of different occult orders. I served as a novitiate priestess for a while. I was an officer. I went through a lot of intense training in ceremonial magic with things like working on summoning celestial entities, demonic forces, all that jazz. And then over time, I eventually was consecrated as a Gnostic bishop, and I'm a painter. So all my artwork is the messages from the spirit world, and that's part of how they work with me in what I do, along with making the YouTube videos. I went to school for artwork, and it turned into a fascination with the video format as a way to help people experience spirituality, and also with the exciting advent of the technological revolution when it comes to spirituality, where even us now integrating spirituality, even philosophically, into this conversation is putting it into the internet as a combination of these forces. And so those sciences are what really fascinate me. And I'm the co-facilitator of the Ecclesia Gnostica Catholica in New Orleans. And that's where I am now. But I never really got into witchcraft as a word or like title until I started reading tarot and getting into ceremonial magic when I was 18 from magical orders. And it's an ongoing thing. Like, I think we're always still learning. So who's to say where that will take us, in 10 years from now?
That's amazing. Yeah, it sounds like you've done a lot of homework, and I love the whole ceremonial magic side of things. And I've just never been around people that I can learn from. So I've ended up being kind of like eclectic, and just whatever I was learning, I was using. And when I was little, I was a lot the same. Like my grandpa used to say, "Oh, you're like your dad." My dad's side's Native American. Like, you're like the Indians. You go out there and you stick your hands up and worship the sun. So I don't know. But yeah, I was making potions. Same thing. Like when you're little, you don't think of it as doing witchcraft. You think of it as you're just connecting with nature and just being yourself. But and I don't know what happened. My grandma was a medium, and she read cards, like tarot cards, but with a deck of playing cards, so cartomancy. And she would be doing it late at night, sneaking it, like nobody was supposed to know because we were Catholic. And she'd do a lot of the weird, which I now know is Santeria, because my mom's side is Mexican. So she was doing a lot of the Santeria stuff, but not really like advertising it. You know, you walk in on your grandma and your great grandma, and they're doing some weird thing with an egg, and you're like, "What are you doing?" Like at the time, it's funny, but then you're like, "Hey, they were basically witches too," and I think all women are, and they just the word is so stigmatized. So, like you said, like some of us didn't really have a problem doing it, and some did. Like I was in a Catholic family, and people were just so horrible. But what I did find out later is like the whole like past life thing comes into play. Like if you're afraid to talk about what you believe in, whether it be witchy stuff, extraterrestrial stuff, UFO stuff, or even just being, you know, any faith, it can really scare people. Because if you have the whole past life situation where you were killed because of it, really, or persecuted because of it, it stays with you until you heal it. So any thoughts on that?
My question, and it's always my question to people, I'm Catholic, right? So when you go to church and you light candles and you pray, that's a ritual. If you come home and you do a novena to a saint and light a candle and offer water and say the prayers 9 days and do that, that's a ritual. In my eyes, that's witchcraft. It just has a different name. And you were saying also that your mother's side was Jewish, and I kind of made an assumption that you have rabbis in your family when you said you had spiritual practitioners. Am I correct?
My relative isn't a rabbi, but he's the person that sings all the prayers with the rabbi.
He's the cantor.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of practices there that go along with Kabbalah. And
yeah, absolutely. We were able to find middle ground on that.
Me and my family. Witchcraft. Okay. Mm-hmm. It's just a different name to hide whatever. And you're right. It's a word, witchcraft. We're doing a lot of the same things that everybody else is doing, only we're using the stigmatized word. That's all I'm saying.
Yes.
I said my piece.
No, say what you want. This is a conversation. This is a panel. It's a round table, whatever you want to call it. I'm here for a conversation, and as much as I have questions for everybody, I appreciate people asking each other questions in the group too, because there's a lot, we can learn from one another and just the backgrounds. So, and you mentioned the lighting of the candle. Catholic Mass is very ritualistic, right? And then we're finding that some of the stuff that the Catholics are doing are kind of borrowed from indigenous belief systems where they were converting people all over the world, basically. So, and they'll never talk about that, unfortunately, and own up to it. But another thing that people do that I thought was kind of funny is their sleepy time tea. I bought a sleepy time tea at Aldi, and it had valerian root in it. It had all these things, and I'm like, all the Karens that are looking down on me for being a witch, they're going home and they're making their potion to go to sleep. So the one I bought had valerian root. It had chamomile, lavender, and passion flower. And I'm like, that is like next level sleepy time tea, ladies. If you're buying from Aldi, you're a witch. So can you guys break down like I know some of us, like some people don't say like, oh, I'm a witch. They say I'm a practitioner. They have their own, they don't like to be in a box. And for most cases, I don't either. But this was something so hard for me to say. When I finally said it, I didn't want to shut up about it, basically. Like, I'm not like, I don't walk in a room and be like, I'm a witch. I think people can tell once they start talking to me. Like I don't need to come in with like a big pentagram hat or, but at the same time, I will tell people when I'm talking to them. So what does it mean to you guys to be a witch or a practitioner of magic?
That's a good question.
A big question, right? Because it means a lot of different things.
That's a great question. I guess I can pull some thoughts together. And also, just before I continue, I very much resonate, Miss Aida, with what you're saying, because living in New Orleans, I'm very much engrossed in folk magic, hoodoo, conjure, and your work, and I very much like the Catholic aspect of magic, and I think that people should not limit themselves to thinking that just because you're getting into witchcraft that you have to like abandon praying to angels or
Yes.
praying to Jesus, because that actually is magic. And it's also something that I think people get very caught up in, like the Western esoteric perspective of witchcraft and magic. But when you look at it in other places in the world, all these forces are magic. So to answer the question, I feel being a witch is working with the old ways, the forces of the universe, so they can help manifest through either in your own personal work or extended through you to the world. I'm also the Oracle of the Old Ones for the Esoteric Order of Dagon.
Oh, wow.
What we do is we make artwork, and the artwork is the messages to people through the art. And I think magic is also art. So witchcraft is the art of, like what Aleister Crowley says, conforming reality to your will.
Absolutely. And I agree with that. I'm going to have to hit you up on the side because I would love to get some more like official training on ceremonial, because all I've had is books. And with the military, my husband's military, we just kind of always end up in these very conservative areas. And with him, I was afraid of talking about who I was or who I am because he's an officer. So there's always like all the officers' wives are very, most of them go to church every Sunday, and nothing is wrong with that. Like I've had some beautiful Jesus experiences, and I still work with angels, and they don't see that side of it though. Do you know what I mean? They can be very mean about it. I've actually had moms at the playground talking to me, and when their church friend shows up, they like leave and start ignoring me. So it's kind of like a weird situation, but he's not worried about it. So he's like, be weird. It doesn't matter. I actually started teaching one of his soldiers' daughters tarot because she was curious, and her mom was like, hey, like if she's going to do it, I don't want her accidentally opening up something. Like teach her how to do it safely and shield herself. And I do a circle all the, like, it's not like the elaborate, circle all the time, but before I do a tarot reading, I always knew to kind of like make some sort of like energetic protection around myself, because that's also very important. Because she's like, I don't want her to like get anything weird, So yeah, the whole people don't realize how interconnected all these faiths are. So I'm glad that you brought that up. And what do you tend to? So you do a lot of different things, Orlee, and you Miss Aida do a lot of different things. And Lynn, what does your practice look like? Like you said you infuse it like all day, like, and that's what most of us do, I think, where we have to go human, you just can't hang out with your spell books and herbs all day. I mean, you can, but some of us gotta go do other things. So how do you infuse magic into your, and this is the question for all of you, how do you infuse it every day? Like how do you live like a magical life throughout the day, just going about your normal, boring, mundane stuff? And I guess magic would make it less boring. But how do you do that?
Well, I think part of it is too just recognizing in the little like everyday moments. Sorry, Lulu is going bananas for some reason. I don't know why. But it's, like when you're cooking, infuse it with positive energy, infuse it with love. When, I'm constantly, I love sage, so I'm constantly cleansing, or even just lighting incense, that's another type of purification. Oh gosh. It's so funny because I don't even think about it anymore. I don't know about you guys, but it's just like you have to actually think about what it is you're actually doing. But I also at this point, and I know Orlee has kind of done this as well, is incorporated like cosmic brothers and sisters, if we want to call them that, into my practice, and worked with them and brought those energies in also, which just kind of brought it to a whole new level.
Yes.
So I love herbs. I have a ridiculous amount, jars and jars of herbs that have overflown a giant bookcase. So I'm in the process.
I think I got you beat. I've got over 200 pounds of herbs here.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
We're going to do a vote for the fullest herb situation.
I don't know why I have so much, but
I don't either.
It's weird, right? Like you just get them. Like I remember in Alaska, I found this store and it had like a wall of herbs, and it was just like I just like knew what to get. I was just like, oh, I want this, I want that, and this and that, and then I started researching them on like a holistic healing standpoint, and then also a spiritual standpoint. And I was like, oh wow, like I needed these, It's just I would be there so much just buying. They're like, oh, are you taking an apothecary class or something? And I'm like, yeah, I guess you could say that. So
Yeah.
I mean, I got everything just in case.
Me too.
yeah, exactly, just in case.
I mean, I'm spoiled being right next to Salem. I can go and just get everything that a witch could possibly want. So I stay away. I've had to. Well, Orlee, like New Orleans is like that too. You can find not quite as much witchy stuff as you can, but there are some.
Yeah,
definitely.
Our friends own a botanica that's within walking distance of our house.
That's
dangerous.
Like, I need orange candles today so I can just walk down the road.
That's amazing.
And get it. Yeah. It's awesome. And then you get to also see like roosters and stuff while you're walking. It's very strange.
Oh, cool. I've never been to New Orleans. I really want to go, but I just didn't have anybody to go with. So we'll just have to meet there one day.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's the whole herb thing. My husband didn't know I was a weirdo when we first started dating. So we moved in together. And he's like, out of nowhere, he's like, why do you have a bowl of rocks under the bed? Because it starts when you're little, right? Your interests start when you're a little girl, and you start collecting these little magical treasures, and then you hang on to them. Like I still have, like we would go, we were in Arizona, and I feel like everywhere we go, there was those like fill a bag crystal like stand things, and I would always get those, and my grandma would be like, all the kids wanted a toy and you wanted rocks.
I always wanted those. It was the most magical thing ever.
Yes, just like I used to love just sticking my hand in them, and then my grandma would be like, okay, fill the bag, let's go, because I'd be like playing with them, and I still do that. I have a lot of those because a lot of those are from my childhood, and they've moved with me and been through everything. So I still have like a old my grandma passed away, but my mom gave me a big candy dish of hers. So I literally have my little polished babies in there, my crystals, if you're listening to audio. And I literally would just go in there and just like, just stick my hands in there.
That's awesome. Yeah.
So,
that's amazing.
One of the questions I wanted to ask was if somebody is kind of trying to make their way, say they're in a very conservative area and they don't feel safe kind of talking about their practice, what could they do to sort of get the courage to just be themselves? And sometimes, like if it's like literally not safe, then we don't want to encourage that. But if it's just kind of like a conservative area and you know that they'll be fine, how do they start practicing and coming out of the broom closet? And some of us, some of you were not in it, but what would you tell like a young witch that comes to you, or a beginning witch saying like, I really want to practice publicly and I want to come, I'm sick of hiding in my closet doing spells. I want to do it. I want to have an altar in my living room, or I want to have an altar in my bedroom, or I want to just wear a pentagram around the world or a crystal without getting judged. What advice would you give to this, young witch that, we know they're out there. So
I would say go for it, Aida.
Well, I mean, my first thing would be to find a group that this person can interact with. I'm a little bit leery. I'm the wrong person to ask because I kept it a secret most of my life. I was raised, don't tell anybody, but at the time that I was raised, it was illegal to do any of this stuff. You would go to not to jail, you would go to prison for reading cards.
Oh my goodness.
Wow.
So this is the environment I grew up in. That's the way it was. Okay. So, but I would say find a group. I mean, if they're in a magical practice that requires a coven, try to find a coven where there's support. But my recommendation would be a gradual thing, not just jump out there, because I'm going to tell you, people are still prejudiced. So you have to be careful.
Mhm.
You know, you need that support group first. That's my feeling. And that's what
Absolutely.
I did. I had a support group when I
Mhm.
finally, you know, came out of the closet.
Right, right.
You can't just do it alone and say, here I am. And I'm, because, you know, it's, there's going to be repercussions for that.
Yeah, you
Okay.
never know who's around you.
I can't tell you how many people have recognized me as being a witch, even though I've never said anything to anybody, right? And you know, then I was treated differently.
Yeah.
So you have to be very, very careful. So I say get that group first. Get if it's not a coven, find people that you can bond with and share the same beliefs and practices, and then make it gradual. That's my suggestion. But
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm very, very old, so you're talking.
You
No,
are
well,
not.
that makes a lot of sense. You've seen a lot of things happen. Like, that's why my grandma was probably hiding out, and I didn't even think about, like, things being illegal. But she would do it late at night when she did her card readings or her mediumship stuff. So she would, and my mom didn't want her to tell me because, you know, and my family's listening to this, they're not going to be happy about me saying this, but they used to make fun of her. Because we're like, "Oh, what did she say? Oh my gosh, that was so weird." Because there was a point where, we were, I don't know what it was with that house, but there was, not so savory entities coming in and out, you know, and she was calling them demons, and I was having demonic attacks too, and she would straight up just tell them to go F themselves, get out, I'm not afraid of you. And people saw her doing that in the family and still made fun of her. And I was just like,
You know
she's not
what's
messing
really
around, you know?
interesting is, yeah, what's really interesting with me is, you know, like I said, people had recognized that I am a witch, right? But I mean, I almost reminded myself of that song, Swamp Witch Magic. Remember Hattie that lived in the swamp, and everybody was dying, and then they brought her out, and she gave them a brew. I don't know if you remember, it's Jim Stafford.
No.
Sounds like fun though.
So, you know, with me, it's like, you know, I do detachments, and although I hate doing them, I have done demonic exorcisms, right? But you know, these people that don't like me or, you know, stereotype me because I'm a witch or I'm this or that. It's interesting the amount of people that come to me, right?
Right.
When they think they have a haunting or something is
Yeah.
in their home.
Or they get mad at
Oh,
somebody and they want you to like curse somebody. I've had that
well,
happen
I
like
mean, I got
recently. I'm
more
like,
of this. You got to come over and get rid of this, you know.
yeah,
And,
will you come check out this closet? Something's going
yeah,
on,
yeah,
you know,
and
or
it's like,
whatever.
you know, all of a sudden I'm their best friend. You know, that
Absolutely.
kind of like bothered me too. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, wait a minute, you hated me, you know, all these
Yeah.
years. I was the dirty, you know, devil worshiper, and you know,
Right.
whatever they wanted to say about me. But when you need me, that's what I'm saying. That song, when they
Exactly.
needed Hattie, all of a sudden she was a hero, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
you got to be careful too with people's, and you know, and I say this to all practitioners, you got to be careful with people. You know, they'll ask you to do them favors, and you know, you're their best friend, and you know, we don't like to admit it, but I'm going to admit it. I don't care. Okay, people take advantage of us.
Yeah.
Okay, we're good natured, we have a good heart, we're spiritual practitioners, you know, we're
Yes.
closer to the entities, and we have that loving, warm, empathetic, and empathetic
Yes,
side of us,
absolutely.
you know. And you know, I hate to admit it, I don't mean to insult you gals, but we have bleeding hearts. Okay,
No, it's true.
and then we jump to help these people, and as soon as they get what they want, they trash us. And I'm not speaking just for myself, I'm speaking
No.
for hundreds of practitioners.
Yes,
So
yes.
you got to be careful, you know.
Okay.
If
Exactly.
they get what they want, then you're a dirty, rotten witch again. You know, they
Oh,
get a pass
exactly. And they'll tell everyone, but you help them with attract a lover, become more attractive through glamour, and they're like, you're my best friend. And they don't tell anybody though. But
No, you know,
you
I had when I was in nursing school, this girl came to me. She goes, "You got to help me. You got to help me. I can't find a boyfriend." Blah 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 blah. So you know, I brought in my mother and my aunt, and we did all this stuff for her for free, right? And she ended up dating an engineer, a doctor, an attorney. And you know what she told me at nursing school? She said, "Don't speak to me. You're no longer in my league." I will never forget that for the rest of my
Wow.
life. Never forget that. So, I mean, a lot of times, when people wonder why we charge, why we charge money, it's like, you know what? I'd rather cry all the way to the bank than just cry. And that's
Exactly,
what happened to me
yeah.
many, many times. It's like, my God, I helped this person, that person, and look what they're doing to me now.
Exactly. They act like they don't know you. Like the playground situation it really happened, guys. So, Orlee, how would you ease somebody out of the closet? I know this. I don't know if like everybody appreciates out of the broom closet, but you guys know what I mean. You all seem open people.
As a queer person, I'm completely fine with that in all contexts, so it's fine. Okay. So, for myself, like Miss Aida, your advice was perfect. That's very much what happened to me, because I had a community of people I had met where I knew this is my life. This is what I've been looking for. And here I feel comfortable. But then it came to, okay, well, all my other friends, like all my punk rock friends from high school, well, they all thought I had gone crazy. And I lost a lot of friends when I started being public about getting into witchcraft and magic, and people got quite afraid of me because of that. And over time, they came around. So I think a big part too is, if we're getting into magic, we are also facing our shadows, those dark aspects of ourselves and the dark aspects of other people. And sometimes just our presence is like the event horizon that makes the worst things come out of other people.
Yeah.
So figuring out that that's something that might happen, shielding yourself to it, but also like being okay with letting go of things that are no longer serving you. So if that is even people that are so closed-minded that they would, if you're not doing anything that's harming yourself or other people, there's nothing wrong with you like praying free, like that's, but if they're going to be rude to you about it, maybe it's not good for you to have those people in your life anyway, even though it's hard. So yeah, that's
right. Amen.
Absolutely.
Sister.
Yep.
And Lynn, how would you do this? You have like I know a lot of people have been coming to me lately asking like about, you had mentioned your cosmic or your celestial helpers, asking me about experiences with that they've had. But not only that, like how do you help people just like get comfortable with coming out?
Well, I think right now it's a much easier environment to come out in than it was kind of, back when probably all of us, Aida, you grew up in it, but like, because there's such an online presence now. So you can find, even if you are in such a rural area or such a conservative area where you can't find a coven or a group of people that are like-minded, you can go online and find people. It's too bad Myranda's not here, because she has a great group on Facebook.
I know.
I plug it for her. Wickedly Divine Witches is a great.
I couldn't get her internet. I think it was her internet. I feel so bad. I really wanted to talk to her.
She said they were having like high winds or something, and their Wi-Fi.
Oh yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah. So yeah, something like that is a really great place to start. And then, like for myself, I mean, I'm kind of weird where I'm just kind of like, whatever. I don't really care what anybody else thinks. So I'm just like, whatever,
that's
but like,
good.
yeah, but like, I'd say just start being you, like start small. Like I think Orlee and Aida were both saying, like, wear crystals. Tons of people wear crystals. Nobody's really going to think too much of it, right? Just start incorporating it into kind of your presence. And eventually I've found people will ask sometimes. I mean, I have a tattoo on my finger. People ask me about it all the time. Am I going to tell them exactly what it is? No, because they will freak out. But I'll just be like, oh, it's just a magical symbol. Like I just kind of like laugh it off. Am I going to be like, oh, it's a sigil to invoke Lucifer? They would freak out, but like, then I have to like, but sometimes that's good too, because then you get into a conversation of, well, what is Luciferianism? Who is Lucifer? Like it does lead to some interesting conversations. So again, it depends on the person that you're talking to. And you kind of have to read that. And part of that is developing your own intuition, right? And your own sense of self. But in some instances, now not those where you would be putting yourself in harm's way, but challenging yourself is not necessarily a bad thing either. But you do kind of have to feel those situations out and know the person, obviously. But yeah, I would say just incorporate it into your being and then let it kind of like people will kind of get it. I mean, even me, like I've been called the soccer mom witch. Um I was like, ugh.
Sorry, I got UFO mom
A
here, so
dagger to the heart, but I was just like, okay, cool.
you picture yourself. I used to be cool.
Yeah, I know. I was just like, ugh. Oh my gosh. Okay, awesome. But you know
Deep
what?
breaths, deep breaths.
It's okay. I know, right? It took me a moment. I had to take a moment for real, but that's okay. You know what? It is okay because there are witches in every aspect of life, right? So there are those of us that were housewives
Right.
that are witches. There are
Yep.
professionals that are witches. Aida's a nurse. They're witches. There's lawyers that are witches. There's authors. There's doctors and judges, and like there's witches everywhere. So you know, I think we just have to own it and just be who we are.
And you have a great point there. I mean, I get a lot of professional people that
Yeah.
call for readings, or they'll call me for magical coaching. And I've got
Yeah.
doctors, attorneys, psychiatrists, psychologists, MDs. I mean, and yeah, can you know, I'm doing this spell, blah, blah. It always surprises
That's
me,
awesome.
but it makes me happy, you know, but you're absolutely right. They're in the professional world like crazy.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But they're in the
We just
closet.
reconnected with one of my husbands. When I met my husband, he was Reserve Army, and one of the guys there, him and his wife were Christian. Well, when I went to Alaska, she started having these premonition dreams, and she started calling me because people call for some reason. People always want to tell me their dreams. I know it's like a sign I'm supposed to like do dream stuff with people, but they will tell me the most crazy dreams, and I'm okay with it. I love being there for people. It's like that makes me feel full when somebody can come to me and they don't feel like they have anywhere else. I just love being that person. So she calls me, and I ended up sending her, I think it was like an angel tarot deck, because she was like wanting to learn and do them for herself, to learn about herself and do shadow work, basically, is what she was telling me without saying shadow work. So I sent her a deck, and then we kind of lost touch. Last I heard was like she bought a camper, and her and the family were going out, and they were all meditating together. So my husband somehow talks to him last week, and he's like, yeah, so I did a spell and got a deck of cards, and here I am now. He's like, I'm like a poser witch now. I'm like, no. I hate when people feel like they're not witchy enough, and that's another stigma that's going on. You know, there is some super cute witchy stuff like that. Like I see some of these girls, like you own it, like they got those cool like pentagram crisscrossy shirt things, and they're just like they look like a witch, and I
Orlee
exactly,
like
like
that.
she's gorgeous. No, but some people will be like, you know, like they feel like the younger girls that are starting to get into witchcraft. Some older witches are saying like, well, you're a poser. And that's kind of like what he was telling me. He's like, am I a witch or am I a warlock? I'm like, I don't know. I think you're a witch because it doesn't sound like you're doing warlock stuff. You know,
Yeah, like most of my clients are just normal people.
exactly.
Normal
Yeah.
people, you would have no idea they were into magic. They're the people that like hire me to do rituals for them, the people that I teach magic to, like that learn tarot for me. You would have no idea. You don't have to look a certain way. I look like this because it makes me happy, but that's what life is about, right? Like look however you want.
Yeah. I love your look, and I was like that. I dressed a lot like that like for the longest time. And the other day I threw on some black leggings, this hot pink lipstick, and all my like crazy bracelets, and a little UFO shirt that was like hanging off, like showing my tattoos. And I was like, you know, I'm just kind of like cute as like a little rocker girl. Like this whole like soccer mom thing just doesn't fit me. You know, I mean, I love like the floral dresses, don't get me wrong, but I love that look. But I don't like it when people feel like they're not enough, because I feel like whatever you're learning in that period of time in your spiritual journey is absolutely perfect for you. And people are mad that witchcraft is becoming trendy. People do abuse it.
Yeah,
but
and
like we all have been around long enough to know like whoever falls off the wagon is going to fall off the wagon. But if that makes 10 more new like legit witches that really care about their practice, whatever it may be, then I think that it was worth the trend passing.
Yeah, I think it's great because it also shows people that this is something that's real.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah,
but you know, I do have one warning for everybody. You know, if you're going to find these people, just make sure that you know that a lion never has to tell you that it's a lion. Okay?
Yes.
Please always remember that. There's a lot of frauds out there. Oh, I'm so powerful and I'm this and I'm that. A lion doesn't have to tell you it's a lion.
The grand rising messages.
Yeah.
Grand rising is usually, and then they start asking for money.
Yeah, exactly.
So you mentioned something interesting, and I kind of read up about this a lot, and then I felt like it was too taboo and I didn't understand it, and I wanted to learn it from somebody that was practicing it. The Luciferian magic,
Mhm.
and people automatically associate, Lucifer with this creation of mankind called Satan or the devil.
Yeah.
Who is Lucifer actually? I know this because I've been kind of curious about it throughout my life, but
Yeah.
who is it? Who is he? Who is this energy stream that people call Lucifer?
Well, I think Lucifer is who he is to you, but for me personally, I do work with what we would call the angel Lucifer. Not every Luciferian works with Lucifer. Just by the way, for those that don't know, Luciferian simply means the pursuit of knowledge, and they use the term Lucifer because Lucifer was the bringer of light, right? So Luciferian only really means that. And it's very misused, and people, like you
Yes.
said, they equate it with satanic witchcraft, which also is not what people think it is.
Right.
There are so many different aspects to all of this, and it does get confusing, and I understand why sometimes they do, and sometimes the wording can be confusing. But yeah, no, Lucifer. So this is where I pull out my year and a half in old Catholic seminary. I was an ordained deacon at one point in time.
Wow.
I know, right? But I wanted to learn the history. I was working on my master's in theology. Lucifer was actually never. The Bible never says that Lucifer was Satan. There's never that
Right.
equation in the Bible. It's not said anywhere, right? But along the way, it was one of the popes, and I can't for the life of me remember who it was at this point in time, but one of the popes kind of made that equation, and it sort of caught on. So we've kind of had that association. Now this is where it gets really, really complicated, but really, really fun, which is if we think about the aspect of thought forms, egregore tulpas. There are multiple aspects of Lucifer, right? Because if
That's
we
true.
can
Yeah.
create with our mind, there is that aspect of Lucifer that maybe
Right.
is Satan, because so many people believe that that is who that is.
That's true.
So it's all such a complicated mess, and I love it. It's not a mess, but it's just wonderful,
It's a fun
but
mess.
yeah, it's
It's a
confusing.
puzzle. It's not really a mess. It's a puzzle,
It's
right?
an
Because
enigma, yeah, definitely. But so I understand why people get confused, and I have no problem talking to them and explaining to them, like, okay, relax, and sometimes I'll say, especially if I know them, I'll be like, okay, don't freak out. Like if they ask me about the tattoo, I'm like, just take a deep breath and I'm going to talk to you. And they're usually really, really cool about it. And I've had some amazing conversations with people. I mean, I know someone, she's the principal of a Christian school, and she and I have some of the best conversations about it. Her dad was a
absolutely.
pastor, and she's like, my dad said the same thing, that Lucifer wasn't Satan. And I was just like,
Yeah.
your dad is awesome.
Even the
So
origin of the word Satan isn't what it's made to be now,
yeah,
So
and neither is demon, like if
Yeah,
we're going to get into
exactly.
all of that. But yeah, so Luciferian is simply, this is a very long answer for a very short answer, the pursuit of knowledge.
I love it. I love it. And I knew you would give us an amazing answer because I've read about it a lot myself. Since I could read, I was reading about different religions because of the whole UFO thing that happened to me and my grandma doing what she did, and I was just like, this isn't it. Like what I'm being taught in Catholic school isn't it. There's more, and it's all of it. It's not just one thing, So that was a great answer, and that's why I asked you, because I was like, she'll answer it. And then when you mentioned your tattoo, I was like, okay, I need a real person that has studied this.
Can we
So
see
what
your
sort?
tattoo? You keep talking about this tattoo.
Oh, can you see it?
both-
Yeah, it's just that's upside down. Hold on, let me see.
Oh, there you go. That's pretty.
I like it.
Okay. World famous tattoo on you.
I know, right? Finger tattoo.
I love it. So you had mentioned what sort of guide? Oh, wait, you know what? Before we get into the whole guide thing, somebody mentioned shielding. So a lot of people are coming forth to people like us spiritual people, witches, people that are, I don't even know what else we call hippies, whatever people like to call everybody that is into spirituality and studying different sorts of belief systems. They're coming to us right now because the energy of the world is so intense. And people are like, yeah, it's always been intense, just different era now. But I honestly have seen so many people that I never would have thought opening up to spiritual concepts besides what they've been practicing that have opened up. So the one thing that comes across a lot is the empath quality that people are sort of embracing now, or just realizing that they are empaths for some reason. Like within the past probably 5 years, I've had so many people just like, I don't know, I just can't be around people that give me anxiety, or I was talking to this guy and I just knew all this stuff, and they don't actually understand that they're kind of having like, an awakening. So what is your best advice for people to shield themselves but still develop that empathic quality or their spiritual gifts?
To get Aida's book.
I know.
I wrote a whole book about this.
I'm going to need to get your book. Yeah.
It's awesome. You do. Yeah. I was going to say, she's the one to answer this question.
Oh, God.
I'm here to get you. I'm here to plug you, Aida.
Buy my book.
Yeah, buy her book. What is your book called then? Do you have a copy so you can flash it? Flash us.
If not, I probably have it somewhere.
Yeah.
My husband probably heard the word book right now. I was like, nope.
Quick question.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Hoodoo cleansing and protection magic.
I love it. So buy that book.
So you have to, and in a nutshell, you have to do exercises to ensure that your aura is clean and healthy and shiny. And you do this with, different types of rituals. But, in the book, and I tell this to everybody, we have an emotional, physiological, and spiritual connection. So part of keeping your aura healthy, take your vitamins. I know that sounds mundane, but take your vitamins, try to hydrate yourself. If you're getting messages that are unwanted, you have to take a stance and just say, go away. You're not welcome. I didn't invite you. Right. There's got to be a set time if you want to start communicating with spirits. And this is what I do, because when I was younger, everybody on the whatever plane that is, okay, they're all talking to me, and it'll drive you crazy. It can drive you crazy. You have to put your foot down, and there's a time for this, and these are the entities that I want here, and no one else is invited. You're not invited. If you start getting voices or thoughts that are unwelcome, you just tell them, you're not welcomed. I did not invite you. Because what do these things look for? They look for an invitation, right? So that's, you've got to be firm from the very beginning.
That's great. And it's as simple as that sometimes, right? Telling you, like people would laugh at my grandma, but she'd be like, get out of here. I'm not afraid of you. We'd have like poltergeist activity. And
exactly.
It would happen more when we were like together, and I was kind of like the only one seeing it too. So it was really strange that I don't know what we were doing on accident, but raising poltergeist energy. But yeah, she would just be like, get out of here. I'm not afraid of you kind of thing. And but yeah, do you have anything to add to that, Orlee or Lynn? Do you have any go-to quick methods? Like say you're at the store or you're walking around and you get hit with this like wave of just sort of, a lot of people, it happens when they go into a crowd, they start receiving energetic information.
So that's something that like has definitely been hard for me, especially going back and forth from like the isolation and then going back into the world of people. And I'm sure other people are experiencing it. Like even my neighbors were saying how they were all having spiritual awakenings from having been isolated. It's like the whole idea of like, memento mori, right? Where people are thinking of face to face with death. They think about their own mortality, and it changes everything. And you have these spiritual awakenings. But anyway, you can visualize your energy, however you want to. Just use your imagination. Like it could be like glowing blue all around you, what have you, and then visualize it being like sucked into your body. So you're like bringing your energy and like pulling it in, like into yourself, like a cocoon, basically. That I find really helps if I'm feeling other people too much. The other thing too is knowing you're doing work to, like when you're not in distress, to know your own thoughts and know your own self. So that way, you know, like if you're picking up like other thoughts or like weird things that come in your head, like this happens to me all the time when I go out, because it's like other things trying to come in that I know are not me. But when you know yourself, you can easily just dismiss it.
That makes a lot of sense. Even at the Oracle Delphi, there was the sign and said, know thyself, because you're going in there and you have to know, you know, when anytime you're opening up spiritually, you have to know what is yours and what isn't. And you also have to like own what is yours if it's not so savory at times, right? Because we've all been driving down the road and get cut off and we're like, ah, like flipping. You have to call that energy back so it doesn't poison you. Because like you said, Miss Aida, you said like the take your vitamins. A lot of the vitamins like so dandelion root, right? It's good. It cleanses your liver, but it also helps enhance people's third eye capabilities. So a lot of, if you're taking your vitamins, they're all a bunch of plants in a little capsule. Same thing with the tea. What about you, Lynn? What is your favorite, I guess, go-to protection technique when you're out and about and this empath thing starts happening? Besides hiding in the car from all the other soccer moms.
Yeah, I know, right? It's not far off. So I tend to, I guess you could call it glamour, but it's more like just ignore me kind of intention.
It's a reverse glamour.
Yeah, yeah, it is. So I will, you know, sometimes when it's really, really bad, like I always do shielding, right? Like we've all heard it, you know, surround yourself with white light, or like Orlee was talking about, that's a good way to like pull that in, that energy in. But I also surround myself, and this might sound really weird, but there's a theory behind it. So I surround myself in darkness. And then the reason that I do that is because I don't want to be seen. And so that's how I also, like when it's a really like situation, or say I'm in like a really big, I hate really big crowds, except for New Orleans. I love New Orleans for whatever reason, but it's a different vibe there. But if there's a lot of people, like say I'm at like parades are horrible, concerts are horrible for me. Like I just don't like being in huge crowds of people. I will do something like that. And it just is my way of blocking everything else out, right? But you made me think of something, Orlee. This is kind of off the topic of shielding, but when you were talking about memento mori, like with quarantine and everything, and I just sat here, kind of had this realization that like really this has just been shadow work for the world, right? Because we've all been like stuck inside.
Absolutely.
And that's such a powerful thing. Like shadow work is also, it's a protection, because you're going to know yourself, right? It's one of the most important things I think a witch can do is shadow work. So even though it's been a really difficult time, it's in some ways also really brought people more inward and learning what it is they think, who they are, what they believe, what they want out of life. So I think that has been a positive in the midst of all of the difficulties.
Can you explain to the audience what shadow work is?
You read my mind. That was my. I was going to be like, okay, well, we're talking about shadow work.
And I'm one of the audience people asking for a friend.
Well, a lot of people don't know, and I'm just like, own your shit. And people are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, shadow work. No, what are you talking about? So let's have some of our scholarly people address that.
Well, Orlee is probably a little more scholarly than I am, but shadow work in its essence is basically kind of battling your own demons. So we all go through life and we have experiences and we have emotional responses to those experiences, and we develop traits in our personality. So this is kind of where my psych background is coming in too. And looking at all of those things and really taking a look at yourself and working through the traumas, working through those emotional responses, because you know, our experiences are going to shape us as people, and they're also going to shape how we respond to future experiences. And we have to take a good look and be like, you know what, sometimes I'm the asshole in this situation. Why am I acting like that? You know, and we have to own that part of ourselves and try to work through the trauma and the dark aspect of ourselves. And when I say dark, I don't mean bad. It's not bad. There is no good or bad or light and dark. I mean, we use those terms because it makes it easier to understand. But the darkness inside of you is not bad. It's a part of who you are, but it may not help you grow in the future. So learning to recognize yourself and the traits and the responses that you have to emotional stimuli, and how to then move forward in a healthy way, in a way that's going to help you evolve spiritually, emotionally, intellectually. That to me is shadow work. I mean, Orlee, you may be able to expand on that.
Well, you said it perfectly, Lynn. And another thing, too, to add on top of what you said is as people learn magic, witchcraft, whatever you want to call this, spiritual practices, we get access to power. And so once people have access to these powers, it causes a bunch of different reactions. It could cause people to go crazy with power, where it corrupts them, where it inclines them toward, like, harm. It could also make people have like an existential crisis and fall into depression. So all these types of things are what we could think of as like the shadow as well, where it's the idea of like when you call upon the angel, you call upon the demon. It's the fact that there's duality in our universe. One thing has to exist in order for the other to be able to exist, because those polarities are the palette of our reality. And so when you start getting into magic, it will make things come up. Maybe it's past traumas, but maybe it's literally like, wow, I realize I can do a spell and it makes things happen. What am I going to do next? And then I'm going to face these important heart questions about what to do and how to conduct my life. This is where a lot of people get into problems because they get consumed by the shadow, their life falls apart, or they fall into some corruption in some kind of way. But when you work through it, and by working through it, it's like understanding it, realizing like, okay, what can I actually do to overcome these things, and realizing that it's actually happening to you. Because it does have a catalyst in ourselves when we start getting in contact with the spirit, where it's not all just like exciting, beautiful flowers blooming. There is that darkness as part of our world. And it's also even becoming more sensitive to the darkness and the hard things that exist in the universe, like the earth being in pain, for example, and like coping with that.
Well said, because I think that I've done a lot of this stuff. I took like a shadow work class at one point, and that was like, and I was going through postpartum to begin with. And I've always struggled since I was a little girl, because I think I've seen a lot of things as a little girl, both physically with abusive people that my mom would date, but also just with the spirit realm. And like you said, I think that my grandma was doing mediumship, but I don't think she was setting a space for it. She was a natural, so she just was letting things, and it kind of creates, like you said, you attract an angel, you might attract something else at the same time, because there is that duality and that polarity in the universe. And this just isn't spiritual talk. This is physics. So the whole opposite and equal reaction, right? And it's just interesting that you brought that up, because a lot of people, I've lost a lot of followers. First of all, because I went to the UFO side of things a lot. And that was part of my spiritual awakening. And I do have, when I meditate, I have more star being guides than I do, ancestors sometimes. So I always tell people I'm a space witch now. But I lost a lot of friends because I stopped. I kind of called some people out about the whole love and light movement. And there's nothing wrong with wanting to experience and give the world love and light. However, if you're saying like duality doesn't exist at all, that's when I kind of get a little passionate, because I've seen a lot of people fall into these dark holes where they thought they were moving into like a new world, or they thought this event was going to happen. And if you're seeing things that are not love and light, then you're on the wrong timeline. I've known people that have become suicidal because of it's almost like a doctrine for some love and light communities. At this point. And I've talked to people like not literally like off the ledge, but almost off the ledge, because they thought that they were going to start having the spiritual awakening and it was going to be all butterflies, fairies, crystals and rainbows, but there's the dual side of that where you have to face like yourself. And like you said, there's that unsavory hump where like you start doing shadow work and you're already a depressed person, or like for me, I was having postpartum depression and normal depression and anxiety. That was hard to get through. I mean, it's better on the other side, but at the same time, if you don't have a support team through that, like other witches or even just somebody or an animal. A lot of people have, like I had my cat. So, and he one night, oh my gosh, he knew something was, I had an attachment, and he actually, like, he'd never done anything mean to me. And I couldn't figure out why he like lunged towards my head and bit me. It's because the attachment I had was in my head. I know it sounds super crazy and I sound schizophrenic, but I've been checked out. I'm not. And I couldn't make sense of it till actually after he died. And I was kind of like saying goodbye to him and you know, the spirit realm. And he kind of told me that. And I know it sounds weird to think of a cat telling you something. Cats don't say, like, his mouth wasn't moving like Sabrina, you know, but I remember looking in his eyes and he's like, that's why I bit you. So
that makes so much sense. And that actually makes a lot of things that have happened to me make sense. So I fully believe you. Yeah.
Because our animals don't like to see that, see us struggling, and everybody goes through the whole, like, you know, dark night of the soul, or just working through crap. If you don't want to use any like spiritual terms, just like, I'm just going through some stuff, you know, going through hell. People say it all sorts of different ways, but what you're doing is you're battling yourself to gain control of like to get the equanimity back between light and shadow in yourself. And like you said, shadow's not always bad. Shadow's kind of like your sexy side. It's your intellectual side. It's your deep side that thirsts for like knowledge. Like Lynn was saying, like the quest for knowledge. Anytime I ask my life calling, I get the Hermit tarot card, and I get pissed.
Wow.
Like, no, I'm a star. I'm the star. I'm Aquarius. You know. But I remember the first time I saw it was in the Wild Unknown deck, and it's a turtle with a candle on its back. I'm like, that's my life calling. And
that's awesome. That's awesome.
But once you learn what the Hermit actually means in tarot, you're like, oh, I kind of am. I'm that guy. So, but it was a shadow part of myself because I wanted to be the Empress right away. And you don't just come out being the Empress sometimes. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to go through the Hermit and learn about yourself.
Yeah, that's true. And that's a great thing to do, too. I mean, I spent an entire year, I call it my cocooning year, where I interacted a little bit with people, but I spent hours and hours meditating every single day and just really looked inward. And it was the best thing I ever did for myself. It was amazing.
Yeah. You don't need when you're the Hermit, you don't need anybody else. You could just get at the light by yourself.
Yeah.
And I'm still kind of hermity, but I do love people. For some reason, I just love, I love people. Like I can meet you and I have like I don't know, like she was saying, bleeding heart, or even just like you could be like the worst person and I want to find like that little baby in you that when you were born, you were this pure thing. You know what I mean? You're not this horrible thing that you've become, or this intimidating thing you become, or this shadowy thing you become. Who were you before that? And that's what really fascinates me. And Lynn, you did a psychology. I'm actually always fighting with myself whether to finish my degree for molecular bio, or to just transfer everything and do psychology because I love all of that stuff.
I started out in zoology. I had to choose between molecular biology and zoology, and then I chose zoology and then went to psychology.
So it all led there anyway.
I get it.
That is totally awesome.
And seminary school.
Yeah,
that makes a lot of sense. There was this so when I was in Missouri, I was like, dude, that's when I started doing that's when I found out about shadow work. Like I found out what I actually was. Now I was 5, hiding in a corner with a notebook. Like I kid you not, like barely learning how to write. And I was like, I need to change. I need to solve myself. Who does that at 5? Come on. But now I know that I've been doing shadow work my whole life, I guess. You know, I've been examining myself to try and heal whatever's left over from last lifetime. And not everybody believes that's a thing. But let me tell you, once you start looking at your astrology chart and some of your habits you can't quite explain, some of the habits you can't quite break, you're going to want to get a past life regression because you're going to be like, what did I do last time? Or even weird knowledge you might have, right? Like you're like, I just know this, this, and this. And you can't really pinpoint it because you've never read about the thing. So past life stuff. But yeah, I met a woman in a Bible study group because one of my only friends out there was Christian, and she was like the sweetest person. And she's like, I don't care what you are, you're gonna come with me. They have childcare. You'll get a break from the baby, and you'll get to hang out. So I picked the classes on the Old Testament because to me there's so much magic in the Old Testament. So I went to that, and there was a lady there, and I would go to her land in Missouri. She had a little like cabin, and the boy would play in the boy, my son. I only had one at the time. My son would play in her garden, and we would have these deep religious talks, and she was that person that could recite the Bible back and forth, and she really did represent what Jesus was talking about, like the archetype of Jesus. If he was an archetype, I feel like she was that, because she was loving no matter what. She would accept anybody, any questions, So yeah, she was. I love that you studied that too, because it's just there's so much in every sacred book to learn from.
Oh, absolutely. That's why I find religions fascinating, because there's so much to learn, and you find so much that overlaps too when you study them.
Oh, absolutely.
You see that we have much more in common than we do differences, right? And it's also just really interesting. Like,
Oh my
it's
goodness,
just
yeah.
fascinating. It's fascinating, I just love the way people's minds work.
It is, and the whole, especially when it comes to like what they believe in, what brings them hope, what
Yeah.
their interest is, their passion. I love like observing people that just fell in love. I love observing people when they're like, this is gonna sound super pervy, not like lusting in the sense where I'm gonna go watch, like porn or watch somebody do it, but I love to see like a new. Oh my gosh, sorry, nobody calls me. Until now. Mom, how
They know.
pathetic! I'm that nerd in the basement. My mom's calling me. What, Mom? I'm on my live stream. At least she's not yelling from the top of the stairs.
That's awesome.
And she'll call the police. He's not answering my call.
Yeah.
The police
calling my husband.
on the
Now
live
he's gonna come
stream.
down here, and then the kids are gonna come down to the dog. But yeah, I love watching people like going through these transitions. Like I like the whole like when people like want to hook up. Like I think that I like seeing the energy, and I like the whole seeing people getting to know each other energy. And I think I just like watching people because I can see the energy, how it changes. Like just with people watching, you'll see a woman standing by herself and her lover walks up, and that energy just like shakes, it's super cool to watch. So I want to learn more about psychology because I want it to like line up with like what's going on in your head, what's going on with your energy, because it's all tied, like Miss Aida said, like it's everything, mind, body, spirit,
Yeah. It's kind of useless if you're just going to get your bachelor's. Just a warning.
Yeah, I know. I
graduated.
I talked to my guy about it. He's like, you got to keep going. If you can't just get it,
Yeah.
Even
when I graduated, you could do counseling with just a bachelor's under someone with their PhD, which is what I did. But nowadays it's pretty
and
useless.
it varies from state to state too, and being military. But
Yeah.
like you're gonna want your master's. Even if I just did molecular biology, I couldn't just go right into a lab. I still have to do more classes to do lab work. So it's just never ending. I'm just gonna stay with the kids, I guess, and do YouTube.
There you go. That works too. But you know what? You learn just as much, right? I think we learn more out in the world interacting with people than we do in like school settings anyways.
Absolutely. Because then I wouldn't have been able to meet all you ladies. And there was a couple of thoughts in here. We are on the hour. Do you want to take a couple of questions from the chat?
Sure. I'm good.
And how about we'll pick a couple. Kat wants to know what your thoughts are on reincarnation. And whoever wants to take it, you can just run with it.
Yes, that's my thought.
Yeah, me too. I'm like, yes.
Also, and yes to non-linear time.
Yes.
Yep. And the aliens as part of it.
Yes.
Yeah, it all goes hand in hand.
Absolutely, yes to the aliens in non-linear time. Yeah, I love that kind of stuff, and people just don't want to talk about it. Like you could literally see them going to their happy place when I start talking.
I remember the last 10 minutes of my life. My last life.
Wow. I'm like, wait, did you just die?
I was just going to say, I can relate. I remember the last 10 minutes of my life.
Very vividly remember the last 10 minutes of my life. And there was another person in this memory. And when we did meet, he had, and I never said a word to him, he had the exact same memory. The exact same memory. Yeah. So, I mean, wow. you know, the book, for those that don't know, I highly recommend the book Many Lives, Many Masters. I just think that's such a great book. It's written by a psychiatrist. He was a head of his psychiatric department, and a very Brian Weiss is his name, very scientific and all that, and he discovered reincarnation by accident, and
Wow.
it's a phenomenal book, and it really makes you think. But yeah, it totally exists, in my
Yeah, I
opinion.
feel like we could have like a whole nother panel just on the past life, the Akashic records,
Oh
some
yeah,
indicators, especially when you bring people's astrology charts into it. Like the north-south node is like a huge indicator. Where the planets are in the houses, why is it in that house still? Your Pisces area, like it's just
you're talking way over my head, because I
I
don't know
don't.
anything
I
about astrology.
astrology, yeah, is way over my head too.
Yeah.
I just
look
my
at it, I'm
grandma
like,
always had astrology books around.
That's
I still
awesome.
have like a super old one. It's called Linda Goodman's Love Signs, and everything in the book relates. It takes a quote from Peter Pan, and then it's like an Aries woman dating a Sagittarius man, and that's very surface level, of course. Like if there's a lot more to astrology than just your sun sign, but
Yeah.
it was always cool to read, and I have the vintage copy because I saw it in the store. People still buy it, and it
I
doesn't
think I
look
used
like
to
that
have that book.
anymore. Did you?
I think so, yeah. Now that you're talking about it,
It
it
has
sounds
like
really
two
familiar.
hearts on the side, and when my grandma came through in a reading, she kept telling somebody about the medium two hearts, and I was like, I don't know, and I look up on my just zero in on that bookshelf, and it's the two hearts on the side of it. So, but yes, she had lots of interesting books around. And yes, so does anybody have do any closing thoughts? I would love to hang out with you all night, but I got to go hang out with Big Willie, and I think that I had to take a potty break before that.
Yeah, one of my puppies just woke up, so.
Yeah, everybody's dogs and bladders are getting this. But yes, I could hang out with you ladies all night.
Oh, this was
Somebody was
fun. This
saying
is
we
a
need to
lot
do
of
this more
fun.
often. Oh, what's my lipstick? I don't have it with me. It's Fenty. I can post the color, and actually, one of the girls from UFOT recommended it to me because I asked her the same thing. I'm like, what is that lipstick? And she sent me the color and everything.
That's awesome.
Okay, so besides lipstick, any closing thoughts? No?
This was fun.
Yeah, it's fun. Let's do it again.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, let's do
Yeah,
it again.
I'd love to come back.
This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, we could pick a topic next time. And a lot of people ask about dreams. A lot of people ask about. A lot of people are being more and more curious about tarot cards and oracle cards. We'll talk behind the scenes and get some ideas and do it more often, and once a month or even every other month, whatever works with you ladies.
Oh,
So-
anytime. Anytime.
Yeah, so everybody hang out. I'm going to end the broadcast and say goodbye to everybody. I have everybody's links inside the description.
Thank you.
So if you want me to add more to it, if you see it and you're like, oh, can you add this one? Like, I didn't have everybody's like Twitter, but Lynn gave me the links for you guys. So, thank you everybody in the chat for joining. It was so great to see everybody here. I recognize a lot of people. And again, if you're listening to this on YouTube later, give a like, subscribe, share. Make sure you go follow all the ladies in the description. They're all amazing. And then also, if you're listening on Anomalous Podcast Network, this might have been a surprise because it's a lot of UFO talk on there. So here's to meeting the witches. And if you have questions for the witches next time, you can go ahead and message me with those and message like some things you want to learn about. Have a great night, everyone. And I'll see everybody at 10 over at UFO Big Willie UFO Garage. Just jacked up your name. The best beard in ufology is what people say. So see you soon.